White House official Larry Kudlow. He was on CNN over the weekend. As you might recall, on February 25th, Larry Kudlow said that the coronavirus was, quote, contained. We ripped him for it here on the show, and he had to answer for that remark over the weekend. Let's take a listen.
Yes, some doctors were more fearful. Other doctors had many different things to say. I don't want to get in and play this game, who said what and when. Political leaders, one well-known political leader in the House went to Chinatown in San Francisco and said everything is okay. One important anchor on your network as late as mid-March said basically the COVID-19 virus was no worse than an ordinary flu year. I mean, there are people saying, my quote was, at that time, there were very few cases. Then, as the virus spread exponentially in ways that virtually no one could have predicted, of course, we changed our mind.
So, Larry, Pelosi, you're just being like, I was just as dumb as Nancy Pelosi.
It's a lot of whataboutism there.
As a CNN anchor is not a real defense. And as we said, look, it's indefensible. And so nobody could have predicted this. Actually, a lot of people predicted this. A lot, including us.
Right.
And as Axios points out in their write-up of this incident, is that on the very same day, the director of the CDC's National Prevention Service told reporters that a coronavirus outbreak was inevitable. This is exactly what we all knew, is that the groundwork for a pandemic was laid on February 25th. And this was in the midst of people in the administration going out there and saying that the virus was contained. And I said, this is going to come back to be one of those 2008, the fundamentals of our economy are strong moments because of how foolish it was going to look. And now look, here we are in the midst of a literal economic crisis, the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, and it don't look so good. And it goes to show that there are no heroes in any of this. Nancy Pelosi, also in a similar date, going out and saying, please go to Chinatown. He's right. There were CNN anchors saying that it was just like the flu. A lot of the media in early January was saying, don't worry about the coronavirus pandemic. Please, please, please. It's just like the flu. Nobody, very few people handled this correctly from the very beginning. But you got to take responsibility whenever it comes to. No, I very much doubt anyone in the administration told Kudlow to go out and do that. He went and did it because he wanted to try and juice the stock market.
Right.
Well, how did that work out?
That's exactly. That's so important to remember back to that time. That was exactly the concern, not just from Kudlow, but from a lot of the administration. The president himself was trying to downplay concerns at that time because they were so worried about the frickin' stock market. I mean, which now just seems like absurd that was your number one priority, as if you could just by like a bunch of happy talk pretend like this pandemic isn't going to occur. It was completely absurd at the time. And you have to imagine, like you said, at the time we saw, I mean, no one could know exactly what was coming, of course, but you could read the report, you could read the analyses and know that this was a thing to be taken seriously, to see even the limited information coming out of China and know that this was a thing to be taken seriously. You have to assume that the administration had access to more and better information than even we and other members of the public had access to. So just to downplay at that time in hopes of juicing the stock market was completely unconscionable. And by the way, this has real this wasn't just like somebody spouting off on cable news. This had real consequences. We talked about one study from the University of Chicago that analyzed Sean Hannity viewers versus actually Tucker Carlson viewers.
Right.
So both Fox News, obviously, prime time, one right after another. And Tucker was much more serious about the virus up front, cautioning his viewers, versus Hannity, who was sort of towing the administration line, as you heard articulated by Larry Kudlow. And the Hannity viewers were more likely to be infected. They were more likely to die. I mean, this had real life or death consequences. You could see it in that study, and you could also see it in terms of the administration response. I mean, we are now, as a nation, one of the worst in the world in terms of the amount of infections and the amount of death. And part of that is very much because they wanted to drag their feet at the beginning. They wanted to pretend like this wasn't happening. They wanted to wear their rose-colored glasses and share those rose-colored glasses with the rest of the public.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's from a pure politics perspective. Prepare for the worst and you pray for the best. And like, you don't go out there and say the virus is contained on February 25th when that's very much not the case, especially almost a month after we banned travel from China, which was a very good decision. And look, I knew at the time that would come back to be one of the worst moments in the administration, and especially going forward. And that's exactly what happened, is that when you have people out there, you can't just try and juice the stock market with a stray comment. Like, you have to think about what the long-term look of this is going going to look like, and it did not come back to look good for Larry Kudlow.
Indeed, as you see him furiously trying to spin those comments even months later. All right, we'll have more Rising for you after this.